Welcome to the Sarah Finkelstein Show, where the next 10 minutes can change your life. Also on Spotify, SoundCloud, and iHeartRadio. Here's Sarah.
Good afternoon, everyone. Have you ever heard of the Hatfields and the McCoys? Maybe you have, maybe you haven't, but let's talk about them. This chart talks about the Hatfields and the McCoys, two couples that are both 65 and retiring, and they both have 500,000 in their retirement account. They both take out 4% a year, which is adjusted for inflation. So every year they get a little bit more money coming to them. And they both average a 9% rate of return. And if you take a look at what happens to the Hatfields, is at the age of 89, they actually run out of money. Not a pretty picture. Taking a look at the McCoys, they, at the age of 95, still have over $2.6 million. Which one's better? Running out of money at 89 or having still a lot of money in retirement at the age of 95 so that you could make it to 100 or beyond? So let me ask you, why is there such a difference between these two couples? Again, both couples are 65, both retiring with $500,000, both taking out 4% a year, and both of them averaging 9% return. Oftentimes people will say, well, one of them had a much better financial advisor than the other. No, that's not it. One of them was invested in safe only and the other one was invested in risk only. No, not that either. Basically, it has to do with performance in the market. You know, the market goes up, the market goes down. And if you take a look at what happened to the Hatfields in the beginning of their retirement, the very first year, they lost 35% of their portfolio, their retirement account. They went from $500,000 to just above $300,000. So let me ask you, in retirement, we have such a substantial loss. How do you make up for that loss? Well, it's very difficult, if at all. Let's take a look at their other losses that the Hatfields encountered. Then they had a negative 21% a few years later. The following year, they had a negative 10%, followed by a negative 11%. So they had tremendous losses in the beginning years of their retirement. Now, remember I said both couples averaged a rate of return of 9% on their monies. Let's take a look at the McCoys. The McCoys actually had the losses towards the latter years of their retirement. Now, nobody can control when the market's going to go up and when the market is going to go down. But what you can control is how much of your money you put into risk in retirement or just prior to starting your retirement. So there are some things that we can control and some things that, of course, we cannot control. But the safe money formula says that as we get older, more of our money should be safe and secure and guaranteed, and less of our money should be at risk. So this is the difference. This is called sequence of returns. When you're getting close to retirement, or even if you're already retired. That is the worst time to lose money because you may not have the time horizon to make up for losses. So running out of money in retirement causes a ton of stress. Imagine if this happened to you or your parents and they ran out of money. This is extremely stressful. Having cash flow problems causes tremendous stress. Also, did you know that many Americans are concerned about running out of money in retirement? This not only affects those that are already retired, but also those who are nearing their retirement. I recently ran across an article that said that almost 70% of Americans fear that they will outlive their savings in retirement. That's a huge number. Only 44% felt that they had saved enough. And 32% of those who were surveyed said that they hadn't accumulated enough savings to get them through retirement. Now, remember, you may be retired for 10, 20, 30 years, or even longer, and your savings need to carry you through that whole time period. So why do people feel this way? Well, there are several factors, one of which is inflation. If you've gone grocery shopping lately, you know that the increases in prices has gone up, right? We're dealing with tremendous inflation at the supermarket. Another reason is higher healthcare costs than most had expected. Some people, once they become eligible for Medicare, realize that Medicare is not free, whereas they might have thought that it would be. But no, it is not free. When you're living on a fixed income, as most retirees do, the inflation causes major challenges to our stress-free retirement. And another reason that people have these feelings and concerns is due to longevity, living a long life. If you would ask my husband's grandmother, who is currently 101 years old, you ask her, did you ever think you'd live so long? And she would say, no, I never expected to live this long. But people can live well into their 90s and even beyond. So what can be done? What can you do to have a stress-free retirement? Well, as I said before in my other Sarah Finkelstein Show episodes, it all goes back to planning. And when you are planning for retirement, you need a plan for income. What is your income plan? Remember that income is the most important outcome in retirement. Why? Because once you're retired and leave your job, you're also leaving your paycheck behind. How do you make up for that shortfall? Even with your Social Security and maybe a pension, if you're lucky enough to have one, most Americans find themselves having an income shortfall. And it doesn't have to be that way. Do you think that your Social Security will replace your work income? Not likely. As a matter of fact, for most Americans, what they get from Social Security represents approximately only 38% of their pre-retirement retirement income. So what do you do about that shortfall? What can you do? What strategies are you utilizing to fill in the gap of your income shortfall? There are things that you can do, but you have to be proactive and you have to be disciplined. Maybe you're fortunate enough to have a pension, but again, most people don't. So where is that money going to come from? What is your strategy to enjoy your retirement free of stress? Don't you need an income plan? Yes, you do. You already have a portion of that in place. That's your Social Security. But what about the rest? Where is the rest of that money going to come from to fill in that income shortfall? What would happen to you and your spouse if you ran out of money in retirement? Have you ever thought about it? It's a very serious issue. Do you know of any ways to guarantee that you will never run out of money in retirement? Did you know that you could actually run out of assets? You know, your assets could be lost, they could be stolen, but if you plan appropriately, you could never run out of income in retirement. Yes, it is true. You must talk to your financial professional and get a strategy in place so that you can enjoy retirement. After all, why do we work for decades and decades? So one day we can enjoy our retirement. Well, let me share a few tips with you that might help you. Tip number 1, contribute to your retirement plan at work and or maximize your IRA contribution. Because remember, the more money you save now for your future, the more you will have in your future. Take advantage of a Roth IRA, so at least a portion of your income in retirement will be tax-free. Remember, it's not what you get, but what you get to keep in retirement that really matters. And number 3, analyze your budget. See where you can cut some expenses so you could save more money and maybe pay off some debts if you have debts. Contribute to an emergency fund so that when you do have an unexpected emergency to deal with, you don't have to turn to high interest credit cards. Want to avoid that at all costs. And 5, put a plan in place to deal with extended healthcare costs in retirement. Statistically, we know that 2 out of 3 people over the age of 65 will need long-term care, and that is extended healthcare costs in retirement. Most Americans are not prepared, or if they are prepared, they may not be adequately prepared. Get the protection that you need. And also, for more information and tips, check out financialfitnessforever.com.
Knowledge is power, but only when you implement what you've learned to your own benefit. Tune in next time for even more powerful tips on the Sarah Finkelstein Show.